It's a brown thing, it's a brown thing. It's a brown thing, it's a brown thing. Hashtag 0121 is a place friendly for your comfort. Welcome everybody, welcome to Brum. I hope you enjoyed the little tune there from the Commonwealth Games theme tune, and I hope lots of you enjoyed watching the Commonwealth Games based in our amazing city. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit around our service redesign for our digital and technology service, and I'll be talking for about 20-25 minutes. I hope you enjoy it. Lots of little chance at the end for questions, but do feel free to hit me up afterwards if I've missed anything. Okay, so a little bit of context about Birmingham City Council, scale of our challenge. We are the largest council in Western Europe. We serve 1.2 million residents. We've got a comparatively young population compared to the rest of the UK, and we deliver over 200 services and support 12,500 users on our various platforms. Our digital and tech team is currently 300 people, more on that later. And previous to being in-house, we were managed through a joint venture with Capita for 15 or so years, and the team returned back to the council in 2019. So a large challenge, big challenge for us to transform, being, it's fair to say, quite an asset-focused organisation at that time. So how do you tackle that sort of challenge for the biggest council in Western Europe? Well, you break it down into smaller chunks, of course, and attacking this on multiple fronts has been key to our success so far. More to do, as always. It started with the development of our digital strategy. That gives us a North Star and an understanding of where we need to be. Then the service redesign part is the assessment of our skills and capabilities as a service to achieve that strategy. And finally, we need to get the organisational conditions for success in place. There's no sense us changing if the organisation continues to work in the same old. Okay, so let's kick off by talking a little bit about the digital strategy. And the digital strategy, as I mentioned, is our North Star. We used a strong digital approach to develop this strategy, and it's centred on 5 priorities. It's very people-centred. We're 1 year in, but here's a short homemade video, so you don't have to listen to me drone on for the entire 20 minutes, just to take you through what's in that strategy. So I hope that's all giving you a flavour of the digital strategy. My husband cheekily said that woman at the end looks like me when I was 20 years younger. So um, that wasn't deliberate, by the way. When we looked at the ambitions of the digital strategy, we knew we needed to assess what was happening with our service and whether we had the skills to achieve it. So that's why we embarked on our service redesign. And in order to understand whether we could, we needed to take a really long, hard look at what was happening. So we did several things. We did a capability and maturity assessment based on a Gartner model. We devised some employee champion networks just to get a sense of what employees thought within the team and get some of their ideas and start to map together how we might want to work things. We did staff surveys to understand how people were feeling and what their frustrations. We did some user research with our service users to understand how it felt to be in receipt of some of our services, lots of trade union sessions, and we had a good look at our equality and workforce data. And that told us we'd got an ageing workforce, we got a ticking time bomb in terms of people looking to retire at around about the same time, no clear career pathways, and we were really struggling to recruit into some of the job roles that we had. So this gave us a bunch of drivers for change. One of the clear things that came out of all of that research was we just got too much work to do. And I'm sure that's relatable for a lot of you that work in local government and other central government services. We got a penchant for saying yes to every single thing that came into our service, whether it was a corporate priority or not. A lot of that was inherited from our outsourced days. But actually, what we found was a lot of the demand we created ourselves. And this was feeding our ISO accreditations and internal audits. So we also inherited a command and control leadership culture. It was focused on meeting hard contract KPIs and measures from that outsourcing days. We'd got a really messy technology landscape. So when we're talking about, we serve about 200 services. We've got over 350 line of business systems. How does that work? And 4 payment systems. It's crackers really, but that's the situation we were finding ourselves in. We also had teams working in silos, not just our directorates and service areas, but also within the digital and technology team. We've got a small digital team trying to do some agile projects on their own. And also we've got a cyber security team operating outside the bounds of the rest of the digital and technology service. So I had to fix that. We'd got some really out of date job descriptions. I think the oldest one we found was 1997, which is, in considering today's day and age, it bore no relevance to what people actually did in their jobs. And due to our sort of KPI and ticket taking approach from our outsourced days, we'd got some poor relationships with some service areas. Although the team during COVID did some amazing work and helped to fix a lot of those perceptions, they were still sticking around in some areas, and we needed to address that as part of the restructure as well. So those issues gave us the drivers for change, and we embarked on this full top to bottom redesign of our service. It involved the analysis, visioning, engagement, a target operating model, right through to writing brand new job descriptions and evaluating all of those through the processes. The delivery team for the redesign was a blend of external and internal colleagues. So we had 2 external people and 5 internals. We also worked closely with colleagues from people services, and then we added in more people when we were writing the job descriptions. But it was just great to have that multidisciplinary team, but we didn't rely entirely on consultants, and doing it ourselves, I think, is part of the success of the entire project. So we also used these design principles, and we adhered to them as far as we practically could. And it started on focusing on the jobs to be done. What sort of skills and capabilities did we need to have within those roles to achieve the outcomes? Then we looked at matching people into the roles. We adhered to corporate guidelines regarding layers and spans of control, and we looked to reduce the layers to be 5 or less. It was, I think there were 7 or 8 layers beforehand in some areas, and a span of control of between 5 to 9 direct reports per manager. We wanted to optimize and flatten this structure and empower teams to get work done as close as possible. We looked at standardizing our job titles and role descriptions, and we borrowed heavily from some of the DDAT roles in government, and also used a lot of the roles that the Lottie team have got a central jobs database on. We looked at where we got some really great practice, looked at how we could scale that out, and have really sort of centered around this one team, one purpose mentality and delivery approach. We set up some exemplar agile projects to showcase the new ways of working, and looked to pull people into similar communities of practice and centres of excellence. And then all of this has given us some career pathways in both whether you want to be in a technical role, an agile, digital design role, or project delivery type roles. So there's lots of career pathways starting from apprentice at grade 2 right through to head of practice, head of service at grade 7. We'll probably need to post our grade bandings, but it starts from about, yeah, I'll do that rather than go through all of that. So key to our delivery has been engagement, and it's about giving and receiving feedback. And we wanted to be consistent and repeated often what the drivers for change were, why we needed to change, and then to make it clear that all the team understood it. We constantly brought our team back to that one vision, one purpose, and how it was aligned to our digital strategy. We talked about the culture, the ways of working, how we needed to move from being an order taking service to being a true partner for the council. We did this engagement in lots of different ways, and so you can see on the left there's a picture of me doing an all staff briefing. We did these on a monthly basis, but we did in different channels, different group sizes, and we also developed the personas that you can see on the right, so that we could try to help people understand what the new roles are and how it might feel to work within those roles. Okay, I'll move on. We developed a target operating model to help us engage staff, and all of this was centered on the one team, one purpose, outcome focused approach. And we called it our 3 planets, and of design, delivery, and platform. So the 3 planets is really about delivering the right things in the right way with the right technologies. And then the other 2 functions of governance and colleague experience and capability and culture are about creating the right atmosphere in which those functions need to thrive. So if I move on, this one gives you a little bit of a deeper dive into the operating model. So functional areas are where line management takes place. And these functions and practices are loosely aligned to the Spotify Guild model. And so a head of practice is responsible for the ways of working in that practice across all the functions. And the idea is that we embrace agile ways of working and multidisciplinary teams, with those teams being the unit of delivery. And practice leads develop centres of excellence and coach colleagues in the right skills so they can be effective on those multidisciplinary delivery teams. So I'll just give you a minute or two to read through the different practices that fall within each of the functional areas. So within governance and its colleague experience, we've renamed that now because we felt customer was too generic a term. We've got service assurance and managing based on risk, commercial and investment practice. So this is around our vendor and supplier relationships. We've got corporate information management, information governance, colleague experience, which is our end user computing, service desk, teams, and strategy and architecture, which is about developing that enterprise architecture around around our platforms and making sure that we've got the right level of investment in place across the piece. I won't read all of them out, but I will obviously share the slides after, and you can ask me any questions following that. So what we've learned from that is, I would say this whole service redesign, from my personal perspective, has been a wild ride. I've personally learned a lot, and I wanted to share some of that with you. We had to, in terms of the learning, repeat the same consistent messages often, almost to the point of feeling like a stuck record. And and the other thing is, if you're going to embark on this type of thing, allow sufficient time to develop job descriptions. It took a lot longer than we thought it was going to do. We used heavily the resources from the DDAT job library, but also Lottie have got a fantastic jobs library. Which also we borrowed from, and we're going to make sure all of our roles, if they're not there already, are put into that job library for anyone else to use here on after. There was a lot of complexity to communicate, and we had people on different terms and conditions. Some of it was around how the process worked and how you would get mapped and matched into new roles. It was hard work explaining that, because depending on whether you were on existing but BCC terms and conditions or Capita terms and conditions, the change affected you in different ways. The relationship with TU colleagues was vital throughout all of this. And I think, it's fair to say we did have some wobbles along the way, but actually using the strength of that relationship early on helped us get through a big bump when we went out with the formal consultation document. And actually we were able to recover from it and pull together a really straightforward way for colleagues to express interest in roles. We had quite low numbers of matching. I think I mentioned that we had job descriptions that were so out of date, some was from 1997. So when we wrote the new job descriptions, the assimilation was really low. So we engaged with the TUs and we designed a process for us to slot people in based on the jobs they did, as opposed to what their written job description said. And that was really, really important in getting us over that anxiety when we launched the formal consultation document. I think if I could go back in time, I would give us all a little bit of a shake with the TU colleagues, and we would have designed that process and had it ready when we went out for formal consultation. So, reflecting on what you've learned, that's what I would do differently in all of this one. So we did make it simple. We designed it around users to help people express interest in roles in the new structure. We had to be consistent when things got tough. Because it is difficult. And we also had to put some of the noise into perspective and hold our nerve. It became clear that a lot of the dissatisfaction and I say outrage from some people, but it was coming from a handful of individuals. So what we did was we got conversations going with those individuals directly to settle and calm their fears, and that made a massive difference to how things then moved forward. So a lot to learn there. And then finally, moving on, the last of the areas which is key for us being ready to do that transformation is our engagement with the organisation. And we have to get comfortable with saying no to things, quite frankly, because we said saying yes to everything, and that just meant we were juggling way too many things. This quote's supposed to be from Steve Jobs, but I'm not sure if it is or not. You never know, do you, when you see these things on the internet? But it's all about stopping the things that are low value and really sort of targeting our resources to do the high value work. So what we've done is introduced a demand and prioritisation process. Our business partners work closely with service areas to capture their demands, being focused on the value of doing the thing and the complexity of doing the thing. We can then capture our work and make the pipeline visible across the organisation. And when we've got 120 projects in flight at any one time, it's a really careful balancing act. But if we are clear on the value that something's doing, it makes it much easier to have that difficult conversation and say no or not yet to people. So the other thing we did was just try and free up our capacity by reducing our audit burden. Some of this was like shooting ourselves in the foot by responding to ISO accreditations that we didn't need as an in-source service. That maybe was a key part of the Capita contract. So we need to keep on challenging ourselves to do this and make sure that we're doing audits based on the actual risk to the organisation, as opposed to some sort of low risk or not material risks. So the next thing is we've done lots and lots of engagement with service areas on user-centered design practice, and we're always looking. We always need to be looking to create the right products or services that are going to make a difference to citizens. These photographs you can see here is us engaging with our senior leadership team with some real example. We're doing empathy mapping, but it was real examples of users of our adult social care service. And we played videos to them in different groups and asked them to sort of develop these empathy maps and how might be statements. We've also done work with an organisation called Digital Innovators. They work with 16 to 19-year-olds in Birmingham, and they came and ran a similar empathy mapping session with our senior leadership team and also with our Children and Families Directorate. And that's run by the young people themselves, and that was a massive hit. And I think getting the voices of our citizens in the room it's been hugely influential with senior leaders. We now need to start to challenge delivery methodologies. So we've got some exciting sessions planned in the pipeline to start to take them through agile delivery techniques and starting to break things up into smaller chunks, because I think we're still guilty in Birmingham of trying to boil the ocean with these huge programs, and we need to start delivering real change. The other key success in terms of the key strategic pin, still again a work in progress, is to move from buying these single point-to-point line of business systems to have a platform plus agile technology strategy. And obviously we want to create these practical and repeatable ways to deliver technology-enabled transformation and reduce cost and risk. And we like to think we're architecting the future, one application and data set at a time. And we've had some success. I think you'll see later in the week we're doing a talk on our field worker platform, or Guardian as it's also known. That's one of our DLUC funded projects, but that's a whole other talk, and I won't steal colleagues' thunder for later in the week. So what's next for us, onwards and upwards, is for this. So we are going to be growing the capabilities in our team and developing our talented people. Our new operating model's got over 400 roles in it. That's going to leave us with over 100 roles vacant. And I'm going to do a shameless plug. We're going to be building more user-centered products and hiring lots and lots of people. And we are going to keep on being bold and keep on being Birmingham. Thanks very much. That's been me in terms of the talk, and we can now move on to questions. And I'm not going to apologise for the shameless recruiting plug. If you are interested about working with our awesome team, do contact me via LinkedIn or Twitter, or follow the team at DigiBrum. And we've also got our team blog if you want to take a look at that as well. So that's that. I will stop sharing my screen and we'll start with the questions.
Thank you, Cheryl. We have one question in the Q&A, and we have a hand raised as well, although I think it really should. There you go. Let's go to the question in the Q&A, shall we? Joanne Grime asks, Cheryl, what is your demand and prioritization process based upon?
In terms of the scoring, we look at the value that it delivers in terms of customer value. It might be a monetary value, and so those sorts of things are taken into account in terms of value. And then in terms of complexity, we might look at how many things we need to change, how many people does it affect, and those sorts of things. And we give a score on both of those axes, and then it can gives us an idea around it. So we got things like if they're high value, high complexity, we might call those a big rock. If they're high value, low complexity, we'll just call those a just do it. So there's sort of different ones, they get classified in different ways. And the big rocks, we try to aim to not have too many of those roll in at any one time. But yeah, that sort of thing. Hope that answers your question.
Super, thank you. And Joanne, there you go. Big rocks away. Over now to...
Thank you, it does.
Thank you. Over now to our very own Lucy Whitehead. Hi, Lucy.
Hi there. It was just following on from what Cheryl said in terms of LinkedIn. I know, Cheryl, you're really active on LinkedIn, and I'm often sharing your posts. So it was just following on from what you said about LinkedIn. So even if you sat there and you're not interested in going into a role in IT, but you want to share with your networks, people who do, please can you share the posts from ITD on LinkedIn? The more of a buzz that we create before vacancies even go out, the more chance we will extend our talent pools and have people come and apply to what site. You know, I've worked in IT in the past, and this is really exciting. It sounds a really good service. So please shout out and share how good we are, because we want more great people to work for us. Thank you.
That's superb. Thank you, Lucy. We have your point there. And just going back to the Q&A now, before we go back to the next hand raise, Rachel Bradley asks a question. What was your main takeaway from the whole experience from this this redesign? So, wow, that's a big question there, I think.
Vision's important, and knowing where you need to go. But I'd probably say this about anything: having a vision and then having a team that are ready, willing and able to help you execute that vision. And the team that worked on that redesign were absolutely awesome. We got different skills, different perspectives. All of those things helped us achieve that, as well as obviously working in this particular area, getting feedback from the teams, actually receiving the communication and then making sure that we changed what we were talking about, how we were delivering it to allay those things. I think those are the main things that I would say you need to have in place if you're going to do a job like this and do it well.
Fantastic, thank you. And now we're going to dip over to the hands raised again, and we have a hand raised from Annie Heath. Annie, over to you.
Hello.
Hi.
I thought of one question and then I thought of another. They're kind of related though. I was thinking about how great it is that you got those senior leaders workshopping and doing empathy maps. And I wondered whether they will then go back to their teams, or whether you've also done work with those teams, because in the past it's been, I've known times when senior leaders love it and are on board, but then don't necessarily translate the fact that they've got service transformation people in their own department and connect them up with the work that's happening in IT and digital. So I wondered how that element of things has been going, and relatedly the bit about digital doing things separately and moving away from that. How, whether you've had those kind of chats with IT and digital, because sometimes opinions can vary on how projects can be done in IT.
Yeah, and I think it's about choosing the right methods for the right problem, I guess, and making sure we introduce design, whatever delivery methodology we choose, making sure that design actually is important to either. Where there's more certainty, then we can waterfall it to death. But where there's less certainty, we need to be using Agile more. I think we've learned some hard lessons by applying Agile methodology at the wrong time. I think we need to pick up the pieces from that and make sure that we pick the right time to use it. We've had some really good success doing user-centered design approaches on our customer program, and that's been we've mapped the end-to-end tenant journey, things like that. There's still quite a way to go, I'd say, in making this a habit across the organisation, and part of the redesign's been about aligning design professionals into directorates so that we can be there at the start of the ideas process, and start to pick up those opportunities where a user-centered approach is going to make the biggest difference, and where we perhaps just want to leave that alone because it's probably better going through a traditional waterfall approach. You've got to pick your battles when you're at the start of the journey. We've got 130 people we need to bring in before we've got the scale to maybe turn it over. But I see it as a scale. So at the minute we might be doing 20% user-centered agile projects, 80% waterfall. We want to tip that so that it's the other way around over the course of the next year, hopefully.
Superb. Thank you, Cheryl. Was that both your questions, Annie?
Yes,
Brilliant.
splendid.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We have gone quiet in the Q&A. I can't see any more hands raised unless somebody would like to speak now or forever save your hand for another session. Here we go. I think we've got something there. Here we go. Andrea Sellers in the audience. She asks you, Cheryl. She says, "Hi, Cheryl. You mentioned evidence-based decision-making and a welcome learning on the benefits of UCD and UR, user-centered design and user research. Have you seen any other teams in your multidisciplinary team becoming more accepting of these approaches?" I can wrap that up again, but I think the main point is across them.
Yeah, so our data program has been delivered in a user-centered way. I think we did achieve some success in getting user needs at the center of trying to design data products in there. But again, I think that's probably a learning point for us, is that's probably one where we went fully agile when we weren't ready, and we probably didn't spend enough time with the team thinking about the platforms we need to have in place, because sometimes you need to have the platforms ready in order to be able to do it. So we were kind of getting ahead of ourselves. I think where's the other place? So the user-centered approach for our Fieldworker platform. Again, I don't want to steal the thunder of the team. It's on Wednesday, that talk. But that's been a really good example of using agile techniques on quite a lot of technology-enabled stuff, as well as the user-centered side. And that's been a really brilliant example from other teams adopting it. For me, it was really, really important that we don't have a dual track service. It's one service. Our multidisciplinary teams have got platform and technical people in them, as well as digital and design people. So it is one team, one service, and we adopt the best methodology for the best, depending on what it is we're doing.
Superb. Thank you, and Andrea, I hope that answers your question quite fully there as well. Here we go. They're coming in thick and fast now as we approach the end. One more from Imran here, and Imran asks, "How is and it's slightly outside of digital and technology services, perhaps at the beginning, but Imran asks, how is the customer program different to the big project mentality that you mentioned the council have, sometimes been a victim of?"
I think the difference is been around breaking things up into smaller chunks and to look at the value that we're trying to deliver with each particular product, so to speak. So it's been all around solving problems, as opposed to here you go, buy me this module, implement me that. Now there is still a little bit of that, to be honest. And I won't mention the landlord portal. Oops, I did. I talked about a portal, but there's things like that where people are, well, I just want this portal, or I just want this. But with the bereavement service, we took a very user-centered approach to understanding the customer journeys through our bereavement service. The team came up with gosh, I can't remember how many it was, but there's so many different service improvements that could be made that would not only deliver a better experience for users of our bereavement service, but actually save the council significant monies in terms of reducing waste and increasing income into that service. So it is about value. Is not necessarily always about improving experience, but in my experience, improving things for customers always saves you money.
Thank you very much. And I think a few minutes early, I think we've exhausted the Q&A of the hands raised there. I'll just talk for a moment, give people a chance to have a final think if there's anything they want to post. I'm sure Cheryl will go on to thank everybody for coming today, but before you do go, please be reassured that we will email out some of the resources, some of the links for the sites and stuff that were mentioned during the session, and we'll look to get those out to you a little bit later on today, perhaps first thing tomorrow morning. Back over to you, Cheryl.
No, that just leaves me to wrap up. Say thanks for coming. Thanks for taking the time to listen. I hope you found it useful. We do have our team blog again, which we'll send the links out. But we're blogging about that on a regular basis, and there is a whole post on there from our head of delivery, James Gregory, on the prioritisation conundrum. If for those of you that are interested in that. But no, thanks for your time, and I hope you found it useful.